But I look at sideways action as you have interest rates going up, which makes retail say, oh, well, gold should go down. So they're selling. But then if it's not falling, it's telling you that someone's just sitting there and just accumulating all that gold and buying it up. And that to me is an institutional kind of play. So I do think that the smarter players are starting to utilize and understand that.
Of course. And today's an important day. I think we should start off by talking about what's going on with the U.S. Federal Reserve. They just wrapped up their latest meeting. It was just about an hour ago. So very fresh news. Maybe you could start by picking.
Yeah, so we've seen the market rally off of the Fed decision, and that's coming on the back that they did start to taper. But what they said with the tapering is that they're going to basically base it on how things are going. So it was considered a dovish statement in that they're not being hardball in terms of we're going to do this every single month. They're leaving the door open for kind of adjustments to the taper. They can stop, they can restart, they can change the amount. And the market loves that. Anything where the Fed is flexible in case the markets dip, that's the way the market views it. Like, oh, if we start to see a sell-off, the Fed will come in and rescue us by stopping the tapering. So overall, it was a dovish statement, but they are starting to taper in November here. I think $15 billion a month, a long way to go from $120 billion a month to get to zero. And then after that, the interest rates can start to go up.
Yeah, so you mentioned a little bit about what the market reaction was to that. So let's hear a little bit more about that and perhaps also about what we've seen from gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so gold is seeing a little bit of a kind of a choppy day. We are seeing some sell-off action here. And what I can do is I can quickly bring up my GLD chart. So here's my GLD chart. And what I want to do is just quickly show you guys the intraday, which gives us a perception of what went on when the Fed announced. So gold was down pretty sharply early before the statement. And then the dovish statement actually lifted gold a little bit off the lows. Now, what we've seen is that gold has been trading in a sideways pattern for the last month or two. If we go back to the daily chart, you can see this choppy action here. And what that tells us is that gold is starting, believe it or not, to pay attention to inflation. And the reason why you know that is because in general, we've seen interest rates go back. We were down at 1.2 to 1.3% a few months ago, and we're now near 1.6%. If you look at the performance of interest rates versus gold over the last 20 years, as interest rates go up, gold sells off. Well, we haven't seen gold sell off. We've seen gold more chopped sideways over the last couple months as interest rates have gone up. And what that again tells us is that the market is starting to realize that inflation is here and big money is buying every single dip on gold. So I continue to be very, very bullish on gold over the longer term. I am bullish on crypto over the longer term, although I still am kind of a little bit hazier on the near term. I still think we could have a flush out first.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about what's ahead for gold. We've got just about 2 months left in 2021. Where do you think the price is going as we approach the end of the year?
So in terms of gold, I still think it's going to generally trend up, even if interest rates trend up. I think that the market, again, based on the Fed's decision today, is going to view it as a dovish, which is inflationary kind of statement. It's that the Fed is always there to print more money, which inevitably they're going to have to when we have another black swan event or some other issue. So I think, again, you should look for a move higher into year end. But I'm still looking at the charts for the breakout. And the breakout, once that occurs, will catapult gold up sharply. Until then, I think you just kind of trail neutral to higher. One thing I'd just like to say, and I was listening to Powell's comments going back to the Federal Reserve today, and there's really this weird sense of, the Fed's not getting why people aren't going back to work. And I heard his comment saying, we assumed that when when schools reopened, which they have, people would go back to work. When, travel began to open up, people would go back to work. But they've actually seen a lot of people leaving and quitting their jobs in retail and in the food industry. And he's very perplexed about this in the speech today. And for me, it's like, I just can't believe he's not understanding that as long as they're pumping money into the system, it's going into stocks and cryptocurrencies. And there are so many people that are quitting their jobs and making more money trading. There's people that are retiring early because the stock market and the crypto market keeps going up. So it's basically creating a scenario where the Fed's not understanding why people aren't going back to work, but it's so crystal clear to those of us that are in the markets constantly. constantly. And it's one of those things that I hope the Fed realizes, because they're never going to get to their dual mandate of full employment if they keep pumping the market up. In my opinion, if they want to get to full employment, they have to let the market either go sideways or pull back a little bit. And then people will say, okay, I'm not making all this money from trading. I'm going to have to go back and get a job. So, this is just something that it was irking me today, how he's so oblivious. At least that's how he's acting. And to me, it's so crystal clear. I have friends in those industries that are like, I'm making $10,000 a day on Shiba Inu. I only was making $10 an hour in my waitress or waiter job. And it's just nuts to me.
Well, yeah. And this is going back to things we've discussed previously. You've mentioned your doubts about whether the Fed can actually do what it says it's going to do. And I think this fits in there. Many of the people that I speak with have similar doubts. Do you think that's starting now to filter through to, the general market, especially as you say, inflation is maybe starting to become more obvious to people?
Yeah, I do think the market's starting to recognize it, which is why being in gold is going to be so important. And you're starting to see the sideways action in gold. Now, sideways action to a lot of people would be like, oh, it's dead. No one wants to be in it. But I look at sideways action as you have interest rates going up, which makes retail say, oh, well, gold should go down. So they're selling. But then if it's not falling, it's telling you that someone's just sitting there and just accumulating all that gold and buying it up. And that to me is an institutional kind of play. So I do think that the smarter players are starting to utilize and understand that. And going back to the Federal Reserve, I think the Fed is in a position where they're creating a scenario in the markets where people are quitting jobs, which then creates inflationary pressures, because to lure people back to those jobs, companies have to raise wages, right? So now you're creating, it's like a spinning top that just keeps going round and around, where the Fed's pushing the markets up, people are leaving their jobs, then the companies have to raise wages, which then creates more inflation. And it is what it is, and we'll trade around it as a trader. But I do worry about the ultimate cataclysmic effect within a year, 2 years of whatever's going on here.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information, and it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much, much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.